Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Brett Horton Show. Obviously, as of today, he is now the guest, Mr. Mike Lopez and I. Once again, my name is Ivan Castillon, the devious one from the Circle Debate podcast, alongside, obviously, with my American hero, Mike Lopez. We are the host for this evening, as now we have our guest on his own show, on the Brett Horton Show, episode number 8. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our guest this evening. We got Brett Horton, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, Mr. Horton?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I appreciate y'all doing this for me, man. I appreciate y'all doing the interview. Not one, but two great hosts at the same damn time.
We appreciate that. We appreciate that very much. So, obviously, we're going to go ahead and, speak about, this is pretty much an autobiography of yourself. So we're going to go ahead and ask you the following questions one by one. Obviously, Mike and I will be asking questions individually to you. Just to, get the audience to get to know who you are and, pretty much exposing the life of Brett Horton. So for the audience to know and to know the background of it, to know the behind the scenes of it, of who is Brett Horton. So I'm going to go ahead and start off asking the first question. What were you born and what was your childhood like at the time, when after you obviously, you were born, but how was your childhood life? So go ahead.
Well, I was born in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and then my mom and dad, they couldn't get along. They was married when I was born, but they couldn't get along and everything. They kept getting in arguments because my mom was wild, like she liked to go out and party and stuff or whatever. And I don't really know how my dad was, what he was doing. But at the same time, they split up, and then I moved to North Carolina, where I was raised in North Carolina. So born in South Carolina, raised in North Carolina. And the childhood there was, I don't know, man. I don't think some people realize like how hard it was, because my stepdad and my mom would be fighting a lot when I was growing up. The police was always called, like something would happen. Like I can remember one time my mom busting the windows out of my stepdad's truck, and then he walked right up to her car and bust all of her windows out of her Firebird. So, I mean, they would do stuff like that. And I remember one time them just getting in a fight and hitting each other, and him chasing her up the road with my little sister running after them. And, like, that was the type of violence. I grew up around a lot of violence, and whether it was those two arguing and fighting, if it wasn't those two, it was always my uncle. My uncle was and still is, but not as bad anymore. But he was like a drunk real bad, and like he would say stuff to piss people off. When he knew he was wrong about something, he would still try to get up under your skin just to piss you off. And I remember one time he went down to my stepdad's house right after my mom had passed, and he even he said, I want a picture of my sister, because he was drunk and my mom had been dead or whatever. And it was the only picture my stepdad had. He's like, nah, I'm keeping this picture. You can't have it. And my uncle, my stepdad get in an altercation or whatever. And then my stepdad knocked him off the porch. And, of course, I forgot to tell y'all my uncle had a gun in his hand. And luckily for him, he didn't load it. But he goes and he gets the gun from my uncle, and he puts it at his head, and he pulls the trigger. And it didn't go off because, thank God, my uncle didn't have a bullet in it. He didn't have it loaded. So, yeah, growing up around shit like that, man, it makes you very, very anxiety and a lot of it fucks up your nerves a lot, But I would say years later, man, it was like almost like it came full circle whenever my uncle said something. My little sister went in there to the house and she said something, and my uncle was like running his mouth and cussing at her because he was drunk again. And she went and told her daddy about it, which is my stepdaddy. And then my stepdaddy went to go look for my uncle, and he was down at my other uncle's house. And finally he came out. He didn't want to fight then because he done sobered up. He didn't want to fight then, but my stepdad did. So they ended up getting into it, and my uncle ended up getting into a fight with him. And I told you my uncle's a dirty fighter, so he grabbed a 2x4 and just clocked my stepdad over the head and hit him in the ribs, right in the head, and he was fucked up and in the hospital for like 3 or 4 days. So yeah, man, that was type of shit I grew up around, like in my childhood. And another one I would like to tell y'all about was probably when I was about 3 or 4. My stepdad was sitting outside just sharpening his knife, and my mom, I don't know why they was into it. I don't know why they was arguing, but he was out there sharpening his knife, which is something that he would do often. And she had her own knife, and she came up to him and she stabbed him. She stabbed him, and he lay there, and I thought he was going to die. So right next door was my cousin's house. So I went right to my cousin's house, and as I saw the ambulance pull up and the police cars pull up, and my mom was like, "Don't take me to jail. Don't take me to jail. I want to be around my son. I need my son." And so I remember crying and like, I need my mom, because I know she needed bailing out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't take her to jail. And I remember him going to the hospital. And then somehow these crazy two, they end up back together again. But yeah, I can remember shit like that happening as a kid. I can remember my mama picking up a cylinder block and throwing it through a car window. I can remember going when I used to go on beach vacations when I was little. My mom would go to the bars and she would pick up guys and she would get them so fucked up. She got this one guy so fucked up, and she was telling me the whole ride, "This is your new daddy. This is your new daddy." And I'm like, "The fuck it is," And she was letting her friend drive, and she was in the back, and the guy was in the passenger seat. And she would be trying to reach up front, and the guy was messed up, and she would get his wallet, and she gave him like some Copenhagen, some type of snuff, and it made him sick. And then he was like, "Oh man, I'm sick. We got to pull over." We pull over at the McDonald's, and then the guy goes in there to throw up. Well, my mom's got his wallet, and she gets all his money out of it, throws it out of the car, and then we're gone. And so it's like shit like that happen a lot.
Wow.
I find it very interesting. The stories. It seems that your world was very that there was a lot going on when you were young. And how old were you when you discovered wrestling? And do you feel that was something that you felt you kind of gravitated towards the world of professional wrestling?
Yeah, I would say so, man. It's like 1997 that I discovered wrestling, and I'm like 31 now. I always felt like wrestling was an outlet, like something like to keep my mind off what was going on at home. And that's what I loved about it, because instead of focusing about the drama that was going on at my house, I had something else. I had something to watch that, took my mind off of what's going to happen next at home. Instead of what's going to happen next at home, what is Austin the Rock going to do next week? That was something to take my mind off of that. instead of being when like times where I was like 8 years old and my mama would leave me outside in the car at 3:30 in the morning while she went into a crack house, you know, and I would stay out there for hours and hours. But when I got home and I turned on the TV to watch wrestling, like it's like all that went away, you know, all that went away. And that's why I love professional wrestling, man, because it can take you to a place, man, where you forget about all your problems and all the shit you've been through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And that was an awesome question there, Mike. A great job on that. When that obviously that occurred, you know, when you got into professional wrestling, when you got into it to keep your mind off of, you know, the drama was going around in your life. During the tenure of time, as you were growing to be a teenager, during that era, excuse me, what are the influences that you had, you know, besides pro wrestling? I mean, obviously, you know, correct me, you're a father of what? You have, was it 3 or 4 kids you have? I mean, my apologies for not.
3 kids
3
and
kids.
1 stepdaughter.
There you go. So yeah, you're a family of 4. So, you know, as a teenager, throughout the time, how did you? What are the influences besides pro wrestling turn your life around? You know, to get away from the negative and become a positive person, and to be, you know where you're at as of now. I mean, what made it turn around besides pro wrestling? What other influences?
You know, man, like since the fucking first grade, like I had like this social anxiety disorder, like where I couldn't like express how I felt. Like I couldn't talk to people because of this anxiety or whatever in school. So it wasn't like I wasn't cool. I wasn't the nerd. I wasn't anything. It's like I just could not talk to people. I just didn't want to talk to people. I wanted to be by myself. So, I mean, and as far as the influence goes, man, I would just like sometimes I would just get in my car that my mom gave me. Like whenever she went and got her another car, she gave me a car or whatever, and I would just sit out there and I would play music, and I would play Eminem a lot, you know, and I'd play that song where he's talking shit about his mom and everything, and I'd make sure I'd play it loud enough so that she could hear it, you know. And I mean, there was many times where like me and her got into it, and she would even chase me with a fucking pipe, try to pop me over the head with it or something. But because I would be pissed off because like you're going and spending all this time at the bar, why are you not home with your kids, you know? But I don't want to sit here and diss her all the time. I mean, she's gone now. She's dead. She's dead. She's gone. At the same time, she might have done bad things in her life because she was wild, but she was also, when she wanted to be, she was a good mom. Every morning, we would have breakfast. She would cook it. We'd have home cooked food. Every birthday, she would bake the cakes herself. She would make sure that we had Christmas. She would also make sure that we went and got baptized and everything. So she also had another side to her where she could be a good mother and everything. But as for the turning point in my life, man, I really don't know. I mean, I remember 2005 watching Eddie Guerrero, you know, and Chris Benoit a lot in the wrestling, and that would take me out of stuff too. But then, as you know, in June of 2005, my friend Rigo, I had been friends with since I was 16. He had got caught molesting a family member of mine, and you know, it's like at that point in time, it's like you have this friend that's your best friend. You go everywhere with this guy. You see him every day. Y'all go out to eat. You go to the mall. You go to Walmart. You do this. You do that together for 5 years. For 5 years. And so you trust him. You trust him because he's a good guy. And he even brings your grandma gifts. He brings your mom gifts. He brings he's buying all your sister and all these people, all these gifts. And you just trust people like that. And it's like at the same time, the whole time, you don't know what he's doing behind your back. And the fact that he was molesting somebody that was related to me behind my back the whole time, after me being friends with him for 5 years, shocked me. And that got me to the point where it's like, how do you fucking trust somebody anymore because of this happening? So, I mean, when he was finally found out for what he done, he went to jail. Before he went to jail, though, he told me he cut a trampoline that night that he had bought for somebody in my family. He had cut a trampoline, and he was mad because the family member that I'm talking about had went somewhere and played with another little boy and around her age. So whenever she got back, he cut the trampoline and that he had bought for her. And right then, my mother, she knew something was wrong. She asked, and I mean, she asked the family member why would he do that and everything. And the family member, she wouldn't say anything. And then right then she's decided to take her to the doctor the next day. So and then when she went to the doctor, eventually everything came out and was told. But that night after the trampoline was cut, he told me, he said that to punch him in the face. He said, punch me in the face. And I was like, nah, man, I don't punch you in the face, man. You know, we're friends. And he was like, no, I deserve it. So I hit him. He said, you got to hit me harder than that. I deserve more. So I hit him again. He said, you didn't hit me hard enough, man. Hit me again. So then I reared back and I gave him a black eye, man. I gave him a black eye. And if I would have knew what he done then, I probably would have done more than that. But yeah, I can remember he had got into it with his family, which lived right beside my family. He had got into it with them like months before, and he was staying in a camper like right beside my family's house. And then you know, all this shit goes down, and he stayed in our house that night when all that went down, the trampoline cut and everything. And my mom had her suspicions, but they still let him stay in the house. And I remember hearing him get up to go out the door to go to work the next morning. And it was later on that night, you know, that my mom and all them came back and they said what the doctor said. It was actually daytime. It was daytime when they came back and said all that. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, damn, man, you know, there's people for 5 years and they do something like this. How do you comprehend it? How do you begin to comprehend your best friend for over 5 years that you see every day, that you've been up and down the roads with, that you went everywhere with? How do you comprehend them doing something to a little child that was 9 years old? You know what I mean? And it's really hard to comprehend. And so, yeah, I remember him later on. I remember him going to work that morning, and I remember them, my mom and them coming home that night. And then when they came home, or whatever, it was like not much longer he got off of work. And I remember I was sitting there watching, I believe it was Velocity. it might have been Sunday night. Whatever it was the debut of the Mexicals. The Mexicals,
Yeah.
Psychosis and Hoovy and all them. They had
Probably
debuted.
Velocity.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yes, I believe it was.
The Juice.
And yeah, they had debuted, and on that show, this was right before they put them together as the Mexicals and took Psychosis mask off. But once again, professional wrestling had took my mind off the situation. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, he would love to see these guys because, he was Hispanic and he loved Eddie and he loved Ray. And I know he would have loved these guys. But he wasn't but 23 years old. I was 16 years old. And the little girl he messed with was 9 years old. So, so he goes to come home and the police swarm him before he can even pull into the driveway. They swarm him. And my stepdad, he's out there. He's trying to get to him, trying to kill him or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And it was just fucking horrible, man. It's the whole time I didn't look outside. I stayed watching wrestling. I watched Psychosis. I watched Hoovy. I watched them make their debut on Velocity while this was going on. And wrestling is what took me away from that. I didn't want to look outside. I didn't want to see what was going on because I didn't want to believe it. And then it wasn't but a couple days later that a cop came out and he said, do y'all know how to get in touch with his family? And my stepdad says, well, why do you want to know that? And he says, well, I can't. I really cannot tell you, sir. I really cannot tell you. And he's like, no, tell me. This motherfucker done this and that to my family member. And then it's like the cop, he needs to know where, my friend's family member are so they can do with the body. They figure out what to do with the body. Of course, the family members, they was out of town working and they had been gone for maybe a month. So then the cop says, and this is 2 days. This is maybe not even 2 days after I found out that he had done what he had done. Cop says, well, I need to know where his family is. Cop finally come out and said it. I need to know where his family is because last night he hung himself with a sheet in jail. And I remember like just fucking crying, man, just crying like a motherfucker because I know the guy for 5 years. And it's like, all this happens in 2 days. How do you go from having a best friend for 5 years to find out the next day that he done something so horrible that is unforgivable, then to the next day finding out that he hung himself in jail at the age of 23? I mean, how do you cope with that? I even remember my mama, she was so mad at him when she found out what he done, and she was really pissed off. But when she found out he died, she was also crying because she had came to know him really good as well. Even though he had done all this stuff, to a family member, I mean, she was crying as well. And meanwhile, my stepdad, he was celebrating. He was, woo, thank God. He was having a good time. But that's because he didn't know the guy the way that we did. So, I mean, it was like, wow. But at the same time, I would say around that time period, though, it was Rigo, my friend, that told me not to drop out of school. He said, I'm not going to buy you no more shit, no more CDs, nothing, if you don't go back to school. And I didn't go back. And he didn't buy me nothing else. But he didn't know that I didn't go back because of the anxiety. You know, I got tired of going back to fucking school every day, and you got your lunch tray and you don't know where to sit because you don't know how to talk to people because of social anxiety. So I mean, I just got tired of that. So I was like, fuck it, I'm not coming back. And I didn't go back. I quit when I was 16 and I didn't go back. And then all that shit happened. And man, it was like, I would say it was the first time that I lost somebody that hurt real bad, you know? It really was.
Now, I heard you mention social anxiety a couple of times there, and if for me and in my own story, because I know you've had a lot to struggle with, and I can say that I relate with the social anxiety part, and now from what we're doing here with Circle of Debate, and what you're doing with your own channel, um, how do you feel about podcasting and how it's able to give everybody a voice, and in your particular case, how you're able to talk about things like wrestling and all sorts of topics that you cover? How do you feel about this new art form and new outlet that we have?
Man, I feel like it's something that I've always wanted, you know, because I'm glad I'm a part of this podcast, Circle of Debate, because I mean, I couldn't do it on my own, man. I couldn't do it on my own with these social anxiety and shit. All the shit that I've been through, man. Like, I don't like hitting up people and talking about shit and all that anymore. I stopped doing all that. Yeah, and that's definitely the reason why I quit school. And like, there'll be people like call you lazy or some shit just because you don't go out as much because you have the social anxiety. Like for example, if I go to a Walmart and you know how bright it is in there, or any mall that's crowded with a lot of people, I'll have a panic attack, man, and I'll freak out and I'll have to run to the car. And that started from right after my mom died. You know what I'm saying? My mom died. I'm gonna tell you, my mom died a couple years after my friend died. So she died in 2007. Her kidneys was bad and all that, and the doctor told her not to be drinking anymore or anything. But she decided she wanted to go to the bar anyway, and she told us that day that she had a dream the night before that she saw a man with no head standing over her bed. And I can remember my little sister telling her, no, don't go to the bar, don't go to the bar. But she did, because my aunt, which was with my uncle, which was married to my uncle, my aunt and my uncle, basically they took her to the bar. She went, and they didn't answer their fucking phone. They didn't answer their phone when she was calling for them to pick her up. So, because they was asleep. So she winded up taking somebody's keys from the bar and getting into their truck. And when she got into their truck, and mind you, she fucking started at first, she saw my other uncle's daughter at the bar, and she asked for a ride home from her, and she didn't really know her that good, but still that was her family. And my uncle's daughter said, no, we can't give you a ride home. So she had no ride home. So she went and got the keys off the bar and took the truck. And when she took the truck, it's what I was wondering, is like, why, how would she know what keys this truck went to? I mean, we're talking 2007 here, so I don't know. And there's also a lot of rumors about that bar, that they was selling drugs out of the bar, the owner and everything. So it was one of the situations where it's like Did they know? Did she find out something that she wasn't supposed to know? Or did somebody try to rape her or do something to her? Because why would she take this truck? You know, she took the truck. She starts driving the truck, and then the guy's friend the guy that owns the bar, his friend starts chasing her down in a Corvette. Instead of calling the police, he starts chasing her down, and she runs off the road, and she hits like the smallest fucking trees and goes right out the window, and she's dead. She's dead. Caved in her skull and everything. And I remember that morning my stepdad coming in, and he went in and asked my grandma first for her keys, and she thought he was acting crazy or something. So then he came in there and asked me for the keys to my car that my mother had gave me a couple years prior. He wanted the keys to that car, and he woke me up. He's like, "Give me the keys to your car. Give me the keys to your car." I'm like, "Well, what do you need the keys to my car for?" He's like, "Your mama's dead. Your mama's dead." And I was like 18 years old. And I'm like, I just woke up, and I'm like, "What? What?" And I give him the keys to the car, and he speeds off, and and then I go wake up my grandma and everything, and I'm like, this is real. Like, he really said that, and she didn't believe it. She didn't believe it. And then my uncle came by, and somehow the police had found his number in my mama's purse and contacted him and told him. So he came down there, and he told us all that it was actually true. And then my stepdad got back, and he had taken a picture with his phone of my mama laying there dead. And I don't know if he thought like maybe he shouldn't show us that picture, but he showed us that picture of her laying there dead, and you could see like the pain in her face. It was like, she didn't die happy. You could see the pain on her face. And so I don't know what he was thinking about showing us that picture. The picture doesn't exist anymore. The phone's gone or whatever, but it's like burnt. It's burnt into your memory. You know what I mean? It's not ever going to leave. I always see it. I always see it now. And of course, it wasn't that long after that. It was 2 months later. 2 months later, guys, that my aunt, which is my mother's sister, my Aunt Teresa, she had been given some clothes that belonged to my mother by my grandma, and she was wearing my mama's yellow dress, and she had been drinking or whatever, and it was around November, and she had the heat on and everything, and she shot herself with a shotgun right in the head. And she wasn't found until 5 days later when the cops came in there and found her. And I mean, it was like you lose your mother and you lose your aunt in 2 months' time. I can remember my grandma wanted to jump in the grave when they was putting my mom in the grave. She wanted to jump in the grave. Don't take my baby. Don't take my baby. And I remember my aunt was cremated because it was so bad, her situation. But yeah, it was like really fucking rough. And then it's like, a couple of months before my mom died, my grandpa on my father's side had passed away. And then right after my mom and my aunt died, a family friend shot himself in the head as well. He lived right down the road. He shot himself in the head as well. And he had been a family friend ever since my mom and all of them was little kids. He had been a family friend. So I know him very well. And he had shot himself as well. just a couple of months after my aunt. And then my aunt, then my uncle's sister's wife was found dead after she OD'd. She apparently took too many sleeping pills or whatever it was, and she OD'd and blood was coming out of her mouth. And so it was like almost being in like the Final Destination movie. It's like, am I going to be next, or what's going to happen here? And I remember my uncle's wife, she wanted us to go have a good time, to get all of our minds off of all this shit. So we went to the beach, and we had a great time at the beach, even though it was fucking February and it was cold as fuck. We still went and we had a good time. My uncle's wife, she put all that together, and we had a good time. And she even wanted us to go camping. And we went camping, we had a good time. And then I be damn, man. A month before the 1 year anniversary that my mom had passed, my uncle's wife, which had been my aunt for like 15 years, she passed away and OD'd as well, just like her sister did. So that was like 6 people gone in just a little over a year. So to me, I started living life like, you never know when you're going to go. You never know when it's going to be the last time. You never know what's next. So exactly, my anxiety would be getting high, real high. So I started drinking. I started drinking real heavy. And I started doing cocaine. I started doing, I remember I did like 40 pain pills in one night. Now, I swear to God, I about died, about OD, man. I remember blacking out, and then I just came back. And I ran, and I put my fucking head up under the bathroom sink, and I just ran the water on my head to try to wake me up. And at the same time, I was hearing this voice. I don't know if it was a demon or what it was, but it was like, you're going to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. And he was saying it over and over again. And, I mean, shit like that, man. That's why I started drinking real heavy. Like, I was trying to get my mind off of all the shit that was going on.
Wow. Wow. It's a lot. And we appreciate
Yeah, I
you
told
for.
y'all it's going to be like
Yeah,
Dark Side of the Ring.
Man, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
We do really. You know so now that you said that, how your anxiety started, what was the cause of it, and how it all began, and how to numb it with alcohol, pills, and obviously drugs. It's common. I mean, I'm gonna sit here and be with you on that because I've done it myself. Been through stress, lost family as well, parents, and it was the same thing. I had, I was really a major alcoholic. I'm not gonna say that. I mean, shit. I mean, I do drink, but now I take it differently. How I abuse it. I don't like how. I can't say abuse. I hate my apologies for using that word, but it's more how to enjoy it instead of abusing myself with it. Like in numbing myself. I like to make it my best friend and my worst enemy. And, that's something we all can relate to that. We all do have our stressful days. We do have our, good days. Sometimes we want to celebrate, have a drink or two, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6. Bad days, of course. You want to isolate yourself and you just don't want to talk to anybody. You just indulge and numb yourself and listen to music all the time. We all, it's common. We all have that, regardless of the situation we have gone through. So I completely understand of exactly what your anxiety. But I'm gonna ask you the follow-up question, just to go ahead and give obviously the audience a follow-up question, and to kind of pretty much not kind of end it, but more like ended in a positive note. So the follow-up question what Mike asked you earlier, like how he asked you about how your anxiety started, and how he asked you, so what made you, you said earlier you couldn't do it on your own, the podcast. So what got you to actually get involved with the podcast, and how do you feel about it now? Do you feel more confident within yourself? Do you feel more loose? Do you feel like, hey, I'm able to actually talk to people and let people know who you really are? And the follow-up question with that is, as well, to include, is now that your life changed around completely, now that you have 4 children, you have your beautiful wife and children, like, do you see this podcast within yourself, positive role model for your kids besides other influences, but in a positive note, not on a negativity note, but I want to jump into the positive note into it. So, just based on Mike's question when he asked you earlier, I know that you didn't answer it because, you were defining us what happened on, what was the cause of your anxiety, so like how, socializing, how he was explaining to you earlier. But I want to follow up with that, and what made you do the podcast, and what let's go on a positive term now. So now on a positive term, what type of role like this does this help you become better, get away from anxiety, and how to be a better within yourself and be a better? I mean, I'm not saying that you're not a role model to your children, because I see it all the time on your social media. You are, but what are the positive influences that makes you, where you're at right now at this level, pretty much?
I want to say, like, definitely having kids can change somebody's life. I mean, some people don't need to have kids, but then there's other people that does to, like, chill them out, and settle them down a little bit. And that was definitely the case for me, because when we were talking about my anxiety earlier, I never told y'all about when I got into drinking real hard and everything. I remember one morning my cousin and my sister, they wanted to go to the mall after a heavy night of drinking. And I was like, okay. And we went, and halfway through the mall, I start feeling some weird way. And it was raining real hard that day, I remember. And we almost got to the mall, and all of a sudden, like, I felt like I was about to die, man. My heart started pounding out of my chest, and I started feeling like I was about to die. I told them to take me to the hospital. I said, take me to the hospital, I'm about to die. Because I never felt like that before. It was my first panic attack. So we get almost to the hospital, and then I'm like, no, fuck it. We can go to the mall. And we go to the mall and everything. Everything's fine. But it's almost like I was looking at myself walk in the mall, if that makes any sense. It was like almost like I wasn't inside my body that whole day. And ever since then, I was scared to go out into public because I was scared that it would happen again. And on some occasions, it would happen again if I thought about it. But now I have trained my mind, like, to stop thinking about it. But also at the same time, I'm afraid to be stuck in a situation where I can't get out of, and then I end up having another panic attack. Because if you've ever had a panic attack, you would know, like, it's like, it feels like you're dying.
Yeah, it feels like you're claustrophobic.
Yeah, it feels like you're claustrophobic. It feels like you're about to die.
You have no air.
The worst feeling.
You're not breathing.
It's like the worst feeling ever. But moving on to the positive sides of it, I mean, definitely having these kids, I mean, has been the greatest thing that I've ever done, because, whenever I was partying it up and having a good time, I was getting wasted just so I would be able to get rid of the anxiety and to be normal like everybody else. And the alcohol and the drugs, they made me normal like everybody else. They made me able to communicate with everybody else. And if you go look at all the photos on my albums on Facebook from 2013 and so on, you'll see me with a lot of friends, because I made a lot of friends during that time, because I wasn't worried about the anxiety anymore, because I was drinking it away and I was doing lines and, just doing drugs and getting this shit out of my head. And the alcohol definitely helps you get away. And that's a lot of times still to this day when I like to get drunk before we do shows, so that the anxiety don't hit me while I'm doing the show. Like, even before my mama passed, even before any of these shit happened, I had social anxiety in kindergarten, but I was never took to the doctor. That it was never dealt with, so it was never resolved. So, just like with my inhaler situation, like people think, oh, well, Josh, he needs to be doing this, he needs to be doing that. They don't realize that I haven't been to the doctor to go get me anxiety medication. I haven't been to the doctor to get an inhaler of my own. What I'm using right now is from my grandma, and she has fucking what do you call it, COPD or some shit. It is the wrong type of medicine. I'm not even supposed to be using this kind of inhaler. So who knows what kind of damage it's going to do to me in the future. But definitely I need to go get my own inhaler. And no, it's not all in my head that I need an inhaler or whatever, because I do remember when I was a kid, I went to the doctor with my mom, and he told me that I was going to need an inhaler. But she passed away before I could go back. You know what I mean? I never went back. I never got the inhaler for myself. So, I mean, no telling what type of damage this kind of medicine has done to me, as well as the anxiety medicine. But I needed the anxiety medicine. But getting back to your point, the positives, man, was having these kids, because ever since I had these kids, it's like whole life's changed. You go from a party boy who's drinking away all the pain and forgetting about everything, just to forget about everything. And yeah, I'm drinking now. Let's not to forget about everything. Now I'm drinking just to have fun with you guys on the podcast. And I feel like now with the podcast, it's like I've not wasted all my life watching this product, you know what I mean, for nothing. I've watched it. I feel like it's led up to this moment to be a part of this great Circle of Debate podcast. I feel like it was destined to be, and I feel like we're going to fucking grow. We're going to get bigger, and we're going to do better. And I feel like it's not going to be the end of this story of Josh Brett Horton. I feel like this story is going to end with us becoming the top dogs of the podcasting world.
Definitely. I see that.
That's a great way to see it. I would I want to ask, because I know there's a lot of people going through stuff all over the world. What words of wisdom and experience would you share with someone out there watching this that might be going through stuff, and what kind of uplifting words would you share with them?
Man, I would just like to say, if you're going through anything like depression or anxiety, don't think twice, man. Try to get somebody to take you to the doctor, man, and get the right medication for it, because you don't want to suffer. You don't want to be like me and suffer and go through depression every day and anxiety every day, and not wondering, and you wonder sometimes what's your last day going to be? Is tomorrow going to be my last day? Am I even going to wake up? Because if you've lost a lot of people like I have, at some point you become to think, am I next? Am I next? So, I mean, you could even see pictures on my Facebook. I have one, I think it was in the 2011 album. It might be in another year, but there's one album, I have a picture that says, "If I Die Young," because, I've always thought that I wasn't even going to make it to 30 years old. I never thought I was going to make it to 30, but here I am. And I think that that purpose is here. Circle of debate. I mean, say what you will. I mean, I think that we're going to get big. I think that we're going to really fucking accomplish shit. And I think that we need to. We need to do it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people out there dealing with mental issues. At the same time, even though you see them and you talk to them and they seem like they're normal, you never know what's going on in their head. You never know what they've been through. You never know how they feel. You never know if they cry themselves to sleep every night, which I don't do. But, some people do. And then there's people like me that just hold it in until one day if somebody pushes them wrong, they just like attack. Like I did on my uncle. Like I just beat the hell out of him, gave him like 2 black eyes, busted him up. I mean, it's just like all that frustration just like build it up. And I don't want anybody to get to that point. So I would say if you're going through any of these problems, like anxiety or depression, like try to go to the doctor, try to get somebody to take you to the doctor to get the medication, the right medication, because, everybody wants to be normal like everybody else. You want to live a normal life. That's all I want. If I had one wish right now, it would be to be able to live a normal life without alcohol, without medication, without the other stuff. If I had one wish, that's what I would wish for.
Definitely with that. I mean, I agree with that 100% with no alcohol, nothing, and I definitely agree. Um, I just wanted to say, like, obviously, once again, like, you're another set of a good positive example of what you've accomplished and where you're at now. And obviously, once again, we're definitely, I mean, speaking for Mike and myself, I'm glad that we're part of this team that that we have, and we have this, and I'm very happy that you're stepping away from that shadow and be more open-minded and just be like how you say how you're a role model for your kids and for your wife. You're doing it, and in this podcast, I'm glad it kind of sees the lighter, the more lighter side of you and let you out there, like. And I'm glad that this, I'm glad that that's out there, man. Because you would, I mean, like how Mike said earlier, like, yeah, everybody's gone through a lot to each his own lives, everybody. But we make the best of it all we can. And once again, like I said, it was much love and much appreciative because that you're a part of this, man. And I'm glad you are. And never say never. You might come to California to do either the 50th episode or maybe sooner. We never know, And we'll all be sitting, us 3 together, having a beer and getting drunk at a bar. But having a great time, though.
Oh, I hope
having a great time.
I hope so.
We might do it for WrestleMania weekend. Maybe WrestleMania weekend. Yeah. Let's say okay. If we can accomplish it, going to take over at least, if we can't make it a Mania, oh well. But at least if we're able to make it a WrestleMania Access, I'm happy with that. And Cat try to get this interview with that, I'll be happy with that. I'll damn fucking. I don't give a damn. I'll barbecue up. I mean, fucking. I'll tailgate for WrestleMania, even though I'm not there. But I can watch it in the parking lot there with them. There. Oh my god, yes. Us 3 doing that would be fucking awesome to do that type of shit. But to end this note, obviously here in the Josh Brett Horton Show, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we appreciate Mr. Josh Brett Horton for giving Mike and I the opportunity to go ahead and interview him. And we appreciate that. And we appreciate the, letting out exactly and the persona that he is. And if obviously you guys have that, like what you said, depression, anxiety, or anything, just make sure you get the the right help. Even let's say you're scared of medication, speak to others, speak to a third, speak to a stranger, like how we said also in the Circle Debate podcast. Speak to anybody in mind to let it out. Don't be ashamed of hiding anything, because the more you hold it in, the more it builds up, and you let out a ticking time bomb to the wrong person that doesn't deserve it. And so you always want to express out any frustrations or feelings that you guys have. And, we're glad that Josh did that for us here, for you guys tonight. And just please, just talk to someone that you're not afraid of talking to. Don't be ashamed of anything at all. Just be who you are. And if you have something to say it. Don't hide anything. Even if it hurts that other individual's feelings, so be it. But you're being straight honest. Honesty is always the key. And so have that. And if you're facing those type of situations, depression and anxiety, and loneliness, don't be afraid to talk to anybody. Don't be afraid of commenting here at Josh Bretton Horton show here. Do not be afraid. Talk. We're here to listen. He's here to listen. Mike's here to listen. We're here to listen. We're open. We're very open arms. Worldwide, besides nationwide. So, to call this off, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate Mr. Horton once again for giving us this autobiography. So stay tuned for the next show. But we would like to say to everybody for tuning in, thank you so much. And I just want to say have a great night and stay positive, ladies and gentlemen. Be an influence. Be an influence to others. Discrepancy influences, don't forget.
Also, I want to say what I got tattooed on me is a quote from Tupac. And this gets me through bad days, man. I have the tattoo, for every dark night, there's a brighter day. So just because you're going through a bad day one day doesn't mean it's going to be the next day. I mean, you just got to hold on. So
that's right. You heard it best, ladies and gentlemen. Well said, sir. That's how you have it. That's how you have it. So stay tuned to the next episode of the Josh Brett Horton Show. Be an influence. Be a positive-minded. Be inspire the uninspired. Do that. If you're able to do that, best believe it's not asking for karma. It's not even asking for good karma. None of that. Is pay it forward. People deserve that. Hear them out before you judge. Hear them out and give them that inspiration. Even though that we've gone through a lot of things, but give that inspiration. Remind yourself, ladies and gentlemen, inspire the uninspired and pay it forward. So for us here this evening in the Josh Brett Horton Show, once again, Ivan Castillon, Mike Lopez, and Josh Brett Horton right there putting the tattoo up right there. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching.